When one of Hollywood's most unshakable stars walks into a studio known for confrontation, nobody expects to witness the moment that shatters his carefully built calm. But on this particular morning at The View, something felt different, electric, unpredictable. The cameras hadn't even started rolling yet. Everyone in the room sensed it. This wasn't going to be just another interview. The air carried that peculiar stillness that comes before a storm. Crew members spoke in hushed voices. Lights buzzed faintly overhead, and the audience, usually eager and chatty, whispered among themselves as Brad Pitt took his seat. He looked relaxed at first glance, dressed effortlessly in a soft gray blazer, a touch of charm in his easy smile. But up close you could see it, the flicker of tension behind his eyes. A quiet awareness that this wasn't just another round of press promotion. Across from him, Sunny Host sat poised, composed, and deliberate. Her notes were neatly stacked, pen resting beside them, her focus unwavering. She had that sharp look hosts sometimes get when they know a conversation's about to turn. The red recording light blinked to life, the audience cheered, the view was live. What started as small talk carried the rhythm of routine. Whoopi Goldberg led with her usual warmth, steering the conversation through the safe terrain. Brad's new movie, his creative process, a few laughs about his long career. Joy Behar jumped in with a light jab about his early days in Hollywood, and the crowd chuckled. For a moment, it felt easy, but beneath that surface, Sunny was waiting. She leaned forward slightly, her voice even but deliberate. And when she spoke, the tone of the entire room shifted. "Brad," she began, her words crisp, "you've been one of Hollywood's most respected figures for decades. But some critics say you choose your moments, that you stay silent on big industry issues until it's convenient. Do you think that's fair?" The air thickened instantly. Even the laughter from seconds before seemed to dissolve. The camera zoomed in closer, catching the subtle change in Brad's face, that faint twitch at the corner of his jaw. He paused for a beat, choosing his words like a man stepping carefully through a minefield. "I think everyone decides how they use their voice," he said evenly. "Sometimes real change doesn't happen in front of a microphone." Sunny tilted her head, her tone soft but edged with intent. "But when people don't see you speak, they assume you're choosing not to. Doesn't silence, especially from someone with your platform, send its own message?" The audience stirred, shifting in their seats. You could feel it, the tension crawling through the air, subtle but undeniable. Brad gave a tight smile, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I don't see silence as complicity," he replied. "There are conversations that matter, ones that don't need an audience." Sunny didn't back off. Her voice stayed calm, each word measured. "But the public doesn't witness private conversations. What they see is you, the public figure, staying out of the discussion. Isn't that a privilege in itself?" That word privilege hit like a spark on dry kindling. A soft murmur rippled through the crowd. Whoopi glanced up from her chair, her expression unreadable but alert. Joy's eyes flicked between them, the tension pulling tighter with every second. Brad repeated the word under his breath, as if testing its weight. "That's a big word to throw around in a 5-minute segment," he said finally. The rhythm of her voice practiced, but sincere. "I don't think anyone's saying you're doing it wrong," she replied carefully. "I think they're asking you to understand what you represent. You have a voice that reaches millions, Brad. People listen to you. You can shift the conversation with a single sentence." Brad gave a short laugh, a laugh without joy. "That's a beautiful thought," he said, but his tone was dry, edged, except that's not how it works. The second you speak up about anything, it stops being about the message and becomes about you. Suddenly, you're the headline, you're the controversy, and the actual issue, it gets buried beneath the noise. A quiet murmur rippled through the audience, heads turned. A few people nodded. Others whispered to their neighbors. The camera zoomed in slightly, catching the tightness in Brad's jaw, the faint twitch in his eyes. Joy Behar, seated at the far end of the table, shifted in her seat. Her expression was uneasy, like she could feel the air thickening between them. Sunny leaned in just slightly, her gaze steady. "Maybe that's just part of it," she said softly. "Maybe that's the price of influence. Maybe it's not supposed to be comfortable." Brad's face hardened. The politeness that had carried him through the first half of the interview began to crack. "You want to talk about uncomfortable?" he said, his voice sharper now, but words cutting through the air. "Try being judged for staying quiet, and then judged again when you finally decide to speak. I've been in that position more times than I can count, and I already know how that story ends." The audience's uneasy laughter flickered and died just as quickly as it began. The tension was visible now, hanging in the lights, humming beneath every word. Whoopi Goldberg tried to diffuse it, her signature calm, stepping in like a steady hand. "Okay," she said with a light chuckle, "let's just take a moment here." But Sunny wasn't done. Her tone was still calm, but the conviction behind it sharpened. "People just want to know, Brad," she said. "When they see injustice, when they see things that clearly need to change, are you standing with them or not? That's not an ambush. It's a question." Brad leaned forward, elbows on the table, his posture closing the space between them, his voice lowered, quieter now, but heavier. "It's not that simple. You don't know what I do when the cameras aren't rolling. You don't see where I show up, who I talk to, what I give. Just because I'm not shouting, it doesn't mean I'm not standing for something." Sunny tilted her head. "But you won't say it," she said almost under her breath. That was the spark. Brad's jaw locked, the stillness before the storm, his hands flattened against the table. And when he finally spoke, the restraint was gone. "You want to know why?" he said, his voice suddenly fierce, unfiltered. "Because I'm tired of being told I'm not enough." The room went dead silent. Even the background hum of equipment seemed to pause. "I've been doing this for decades," Brad continued, the dam breaking. "I've given my time, my money, my support to people, to causes, to stories that matter, but it's never enough. It's always say more, do more, prove it again. I'm done proving myself to strangers who think they know who I am." The audience froze. No one clapped, no one moved. The silence had gravity. It pulled the entire room still. Sunny opened her mouth to respond, but the words caught somewhere between reason and reflection. For a moment, she looked less like a TV host and more like someone realizing that maybe she had pushed too far. Brad's tone softened slightly, though his voice still carried that hard edge of exhaustion. "I came here to talk about a film, a story that's supposed to be about hope, about resilience, and somehow that turned into me defending whether I'm saying the right thing in the right way." A murmur of voices stirred again in the audience. Some people nodded in quiet sympathy. Others whispered to their neighbors, eyes wide. Sunny took a breath, her voice low but sincere. "I hear you, Brad. I do. But maybe what people wanted to hear was that same hope from you." Brad let out a hollow, bitter laugh. "Then maybe they should stop looking for hope in actors." It landed like a slap. No one laughed. No one whispered. The air was thick with disbelief. Whoopi, ever the professional, stepped in gently. "Brad," she said softly, "take a breath." But Brad had already made his decision. He looked towards the audience, then to the cameras, then back at the table. His voice was flat now. Steady, final. "I think I've said enough." He stood. The scrape of his chair against the floor was deafening in the quiet studio. A producer offstage gestured wildly for him to sit back down. He didn't even look over. He adjusted the sleeve of his jacket, took a step back, and began walking towards the wings. "Brad, wait!" Joy called after him, half rising from her chair, but her voice barely reached him. Sunny sat frozen, her eyes following him as he walked away. Whoopi exhaled softly and looked at the audience, her professionalism barely masking the shock. "Well," she said, her voice calm but heavy, "live television. You never know what you're going to get." The applause sign blinked above the crowd, but the clapping that followed was awkward, scattered, like an aftershock trying to fill the silence. Behind the scenes, the control room was chaos. "Camera 3, wide shot. Stay on the table," a voice shouted through headsets. Crew members whispered frantically. On stage, Joy still hadn't moved. Sunny looked down at her notes, her face composed, but distant. Whoopi cleared her throat again, looking straight into the camera. "We're going to take a break," she said, her tone soft but controlled. "Wait some things." The screen faded to commercial. Backstage, Brad stood near the